Sarah Martinez had always been small for her age, but what she lacked in physical stature, she made up for in determination. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood in San Diego, she watched military jets fly overhead daily, dreaming of the day she could serve her country. Her father, a retired Marine, had filled her childhood with stories of honor, courage, and the brotherhood that existed among service members. When Sarah turned 18, she walked into the Navy recruitment office with unwavering resolve. The recruiter looked her up and down skeptically, noting her petite 5'2" frame and questioning whether she had what it took for military life. Sarah's jaw tightened, but she remained composed. She had heard these doubts before, and they only fueled her determination. Boot camp at Great Lakes Naval Training Center proved to be the crucible that would forge Sarah into the sailor she was destined to become. While other recruits struggled with the physical demands, Sarah approached every challenge methodically. She studied harder, trained longer, and pushed herself beyond what anyone thought possible. Her drill instructors noticed her exceptional performance, particularly her natural leadership abilities and tactical thinking. During her final weeks of boot camp, Sarah volunteered for every additional training opportunity available. She qualified as a marksman, excelled in combat training, and demonstrated an innate understanding of military strategy that impressed even the most seasoned instructors. When graduation day arrived, Sarah stood proudly among the top 10% of her class, having earned the respect of her peers and superiors alike. Her first assignment took her to Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado, California. Sarah had requested assignment to a support role within the SEAL community, knowing that while women weren't permitted in direct combat roles at the time, she could still contribute meaningfully to special operations. Her analytical skills and attention to detail made her invaluable in intelligence gathering and mission planning. Working alongside some of the military's most elite warriors, Sarah quickly proved her worth. She spent countless hours analyzing enemy positions, studying satellite imagery, and developing tactical recommendations that helped save lives in the field. Her male colleagues initially viewed her with skepticism, but her competence and dedication gradually won them over. The turning point came during a particularly dangerous mission in the Middle East. Sarah was part of the support team for a high-stakes operation to extract captured American personnel from enemy territory. When the primary communication link failed during the mission, Sarah worked tirelessly through the night to re-establish contact using backup systems and creative problem-solving techniques she had developed. Her efforts not only restored communication, but also provided critical intelligence that allowed the rescue team to adapt their approach and successfully complete the mission. The SEAL team leader later credited Sarah's quick thinking and technical expertise with saving multiple American lives that night. Recognition for her contributions came in various forms. Sarah received several commendations and was fast-tracked for advanced training programs typically reserved for more senior personnel. She attended specialized schools for intelligence analysis, advanced communications, and tactical planning. Each new skill she acquired made her more valuable to special operations teams. Despite her growing reputation and proven track record, Sarah still encountered resistance from some quarters. Traditional military culture moved slowly, and not everyone was ready to accept a young woman in roles that had been exclusively male domains. Some questioned her qualifications, suggesting she had received special treatment because of her gender, rather than recognizing her genuine abilities. These challenges only strengthened Sarah's resolve. She knew that she had to be twice as good as her male counterparts to receive equal recognition. She embraced this reality, using it as motivation to continuously improve and exceed expectations. Her work ethic became legendary among those who knew her. As her reputation grew within special operations circles, Sarah began receiving requests for her expertise from teams across different branches of the military. Her unique combination of analytical skills, tactical knowledge, and operational experience made her a sought-after asset for complex missions requiring innovative solutions. The respect she earned was hard-fought and genuine. Fellow service members who had initially doubted her abilities now sought her counsel on difficult problems. Her insights had proven invaluable in multiple successful operations, and her name began appearing in classified briefings at the highest levels of military command. Sarah's journey from a doubtful recruit to a respected special operations professional had taken several years of relentless effort and unwavering dedication. She had proven that determination and competence could overcome prejudice and tradition. Her story was becoming an inspiration to other women considering military careers, though few knew the full extent of her contributions due to the classified nature of her work. The foundation for what would become a career-defining moment was being laid through years of exceptional service, professional growth, and the gradual accumulation of respect from the military's most elite communities. Sarah had no idea that her greatest test of credibility was yet to come, nor that the proof of her worth would be written permanently on her own skin. The assignment that would change everything came on a rainy Tuesday morning in Norfolk, Virginia. Sarah had been selected for a joint task force operation that would take her deep into hostile territory in Afghanistan. The mission was classified at the highest levels, involving coordination between Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, and CIA operatives to disrupt a major terrorist network. For the first time in her career, Sarah would be deploying directly to a combat zone as part of the operational team rather than providing support from a safe distance. The selection committee had chosen her specifically because of her proven ability to adapt tactical plans in real time and her extensive knowledge of the enemy's communication systems. The 6-month deployment began with intensive preparation at a classified training facility in the Nevada desert. Sarah found herself working alongside some of the most decorated special operations personnel in the military. The training was brutal, designed to simulate the extreme conditions they would face in Afghanistan's mountainous terrain. During a particularly challenging night exercise, Sarah's team was tasked with infiltrating a mock enemy compound under live fire conditions. When the team leader was killed by simulated enemy fire early in the exercise, Sarah immediately assumed command. Her quick decision-making and tactical awareness led the team to successfully complete the mission despite the setback. The exercise instructors were impressed by her natural leadership under pressure. One grizzled Special Forces veteran pulled her aside afterward and said, "You've got what it takes, Martinez. Don't let anyone tell you different." His words meant more to Sarah than any official commendation she had received. The deployment to Afghanistan brought Sarah face to face with the brutal realities of modern warfare. Operating from a forward base near the Pakistani border, her team conducted high-risk missions to gather intelligence on terrorist activities and disrupt enemy operations. The work was dangerous, with constant threats from improvised explosive devices, sniper attacks, and ambushes. 3 months into the deployment, Sarah's team was tasked with a mission that would push her to her absolute limits. Intelligence had identified a high-value target hiding in a remote mountain village. The terrorist leader was planning a major attack on coalition forces, and stopping him was critical to saving American lives. The mission required a small team to infiltrate the village under cover of darkness, locate the target, and either capture or eliminate him before he could escape. Sarah's role was to provide real-time intelligence analysis and coordinate with supporting units during the operation. As the team moved through the treacherous mountain terrain, they encountered unexpected resistance. Enemy fighters had set up defensive positions along their planned route, forcing them to adapt their approach. Sarah's knowledge of the local geography and enemy tactics proved crucial in finding an alternative path to the target. The firefight that erupted when they reached the village was intense and chaotic. Sarah found herself in direct combat for the first time, returning fire while simultaneously coordinating air support and monitoring enemy communications. The training she had received years earlier kicked in, and she performed with the same calm precision that had marked her entire career. During the battle, an improvised explosive device detonated near Sarah's position, throwing her against a stone wall and leaving her temporarily unconscious. When she regained consciousness, she discovered that shrapnel from the explosion had torn through her tactical vest and embedded in her left shoulder. Despite her injuries, Sarah continued to function as the team's intelligence coordinator. She maintained communication with headquarters, provided updates on the tactical situation, and helped coordinate the successful elimination of the terrorist target. Her refusal to be evacuated until the mission was complete earned her the respect of even the most skeptical team members. The field medic who treated her wounds noted that the shrapnel pattern across her shoulder and upper back would leave permanent scars. Sarah barely registered this information at the time, focused instead on completing the mission debrief and ensuring that all intelligence gathered during the operation was properly documented. Recovery from her injuries took several weeks, during which Sarah remained at the forward operating base. Unable to participate in active missions, she threw herself into intelligence analysis, helping plan future operations and training new personnel arriving at the base. Her injury had not diminished her value to the team. If anything, her combat experience had enhanced her credibility among the operators she supported. When the deployment ended, Sarah returned to the United States with a chest full of decorations and the profound respect of her colleagues. The Purple Heart she received for her combat injuries was just one of several awards recognizing her exceptional service during the deployment. But the most significant recognition came from an unexpected source. The commanding general of Special Operations Command had personally reviewed her service record and mission reports. Impressed by her performance and potential, he recommended Sarah for an elite training program that would prepare her for the most sensitive and dangerous missions the military conducted. The selection process for this program was extraordinarily rigorous, with a failure rate exceeding 90%. Candidates were evaluated not just on their physical and mental capabilities, but on their ability to operate independently in hostile environments with minimal support. Sarah's combat experience and proven track record made her a strong candidate, but she knew that earning a place in the program would require everything she had to give. The psychological evaluation was perhaps the most challenging aspect of the selection process. Military psychologists probed every aspect of her background, motivation, and mental resilience. They wanted to ensure that candidates could handle the extreme stress and moral ambiguity that characterized the missions they would undertake. Sarah's evaluators were particularly interested in how she had handled the transition from support roles to direct combat operations. Her honest assessment of her experiences, combined with the recommendations from her combat commanders, convinced them that she possessed the rare combination of analytical intelligence and battlefield courage required for the program. The final phase of selection took place at a classified facility where the specific details of the training program would be revealed to successful candidates. Sarah had made it further than any woman before her, but she knew that the ultimate test was still ahead. 5 years after completing the classified training program, Sarah Martinez had become a ghost in the military intelligence community. Her operations were so sensitive that even her existence was known to only a handful of senior officers. She had participated in missions across 4 continents, often spending months undercover in hostile territories gathering intelligence that shaped national security policy. The training program had transformed her in ways she hadn't anticipated. Beyond the advanced combat techniques and intelligence-gathering methods, she had undergone procedures that marked her as one of the military's most elite operators. The most significant of these was a specialized tattoo applied during the final week of training. The tattoo was unlike anything in civilian culture. Created using a proprietary ink formula developed specifically for military use, It was visible only under specific lighting conditions and to those who knew what to look for. The design incorporated classified symbols that identified her as a member of the ultra-secret program, along with encoded information about her clearance level and operational authorization. Located on her left shoulder, partially covering the scars from her combat injuries in Afghanistan, the tattoo served multiple purposes. It was simultaneously an identification marker, a security clearance indicator, and a symbol of achievement that could never be replicated or faked. The application process itself had been conducted in a secure facility by technicians with the highest security clearances. Only a dozen people in the entire military hierarchy possessed the knowledge necessary to recognize and interpret the tattoo's significance. The existence of the program itself was classified above top secret, known only to the President, Secretary of Defense, and a handful of senior intelligence officials. Sarah's reputation within this exclusive community was unparalleled. She had successfully completed missions that others had deemed impossible, including the infiltration of a terrorist training camp in Somalia and the extraction of a deep-cover asset from Iran. Her combination of analytical brilliance and operational skills had saved countless American lives and prevented multiple terrorist attacks on American soil. The mission that would test her credentials in an unexpected way began as a routine assignment. Sarah had been tasked with attending a joint military conference in Washington, D.C., where she would brief senior officers from various branches on emerging terrorist communication methods. The conference was classified, but not at the level of her usual operations. Arriving at the Pentagon on a crisp October morning, Sarah presented her credentials to the security checkpoint. The young Marine corporal examining her identification looked confused as he compared her appearance to the security database. At 28, Sarah still looked remarkably young, and her petite stature seemed incongruous with the high security clearances indicated in her file. The corporal called his supervisor, a staff sergeant with 15 years of experience, who reviewed Sarah's credentials with growing skepticism. Her security clearances were at levels he had never seen before, and her assignment codes didn't match any units he recognized. The staff sergeant's suspicion grew as he noted discrepancies between her apparent age and the extensive operational history indicated in her file. Word of the unusual situation quickly spread through the security office. Senior security personnel arrived to examine Sarah's credentials, and their confusion only deepened as they reviewed her documentation. The clearance levels and operational codes in her file were so far above their own authorization levels that they couldn't verify their authenticity through normal channels. Sarah remained calm throughout the increasingly tense situation, understanding that the security personnel were simply doing their jobs. She provided additional identification and submitted to biometric scanning, but the results only confused the security team further. Her biometric data matched the files, but her operational history seemed impossible for someone her age. As word of the situation reached higher levels of Pentagon security, Sarah found herself in an increasingly uncomfortable position. She couldn't explain the nature of her work without revealing classified information, and the security personnel couldn't verify her credentials through their normal channels. The impasse threatened to derail the important briefing she was scheduled to deliver. The situation escalated when a senior security officer suggested that Sarah might be using fraudulent identification. This accusation struck at the heart of everything she had worked for throughout her military career. The suggestion that she was an impostor attempting to gain unauthorized access to classified facilities was particularly painful given the sacrifices she had made in service to her country. Sarah requested permission to contact her chain of command to resolve the situation, but even this presented complications. The officers responsible for her program operated under such deep cover that reaching them through normal military communication channels was impossible. She found herself trapped in a bureaucratic nightmare, unable to prove her identity without revealing classified information. The conference was scheduled to begin in less than an hour, and Sarah's briefing was a critical component of the agenda. Senior officers from across the military were gathering to hear her analysis of emerging terrorist threats. But she remained detained in the security office while officials debated what to do with her. The turning point came when Admiral William Richardson, the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations, arrived at the Pentagon for the conference. A decorated veteran with over 30 years of service, Admiral Richardson had overseen some of the Navy's most sensitive operations and possessed security clearances at the highest levels. As he passed through the security checkpoint, Admiral Richardson noticed the unusual commotion surrounding a young woman being questioned by security personnel. Initially planning to continue to his meeting, something about the situation made him pause. He had learned over the years that unusual security situations often involved personnel from the most classified programs. Admiral Richardson approached the security desk and quietly inquired about the nature of the problem. When the security officer explained that they were dealing with a suspected impostor carrying fraudulent high-level clearances, the Admiral's interest was piqued. He requested to see the documentation in question. As Admiral Richardson reviewed Sarah's credentials, his expression changed from casual curiosity to serious attention. The clearance codes and operational designators in her file were familiar to him from his role in overseeing special operations. He recognized the indicators of involvement in programs so classified that their existence was known to only a handful of senior officials. Admiral Richardson's attention shifted to Sarah herself. Studying her carefully as she maintained her composure despite the stressful situation. Something about her bearing and calm professionalism suggested to him that she was exactly who she claimed to be. He had encountered personnel from highly classified programs before and recognized the distinctive combination of youth and experience that characterized the military's most elite operators. The Admiral made a decision that would validate everything Sarah had worked for throughout her career. He quietly asked her to step aside for a private conversation, away from the security personnel who had been questioning her credentials. In a low voice, he asked her a series of questions that only someone with her level of clearance and operational experience would know how to answer. Sarah's responses confirmed Admiral Richardson's growing suspicion about her true identity and role. Her knowledge of classified operational procedures and current threat assessments demonstrated conclusively that she was not an impostor attempting to gain unauthorized access, but rather a highly qualified professional with legitimate business at the conference. However, Admiral Richardson needed one final piece of confirmation before he could authorize Sarah's admission to the conference. He was aware of the specialized identification methods used by the most classified programs, and he suspected that Sarah carried such identification. In a voice barely above a whisper, he asked if she bore any special markings that would confirm her status. Sarah's response was to discreetly adjust her uniform jacket, revealing just enough of her left shoulder to show the edge of the specialized tattoo. Admiral Richardson's trained eye immediately recognized the distinctive markings that confirmed her membership in one of the military's most elite programs. The tattoo's unique characteristics, impossible to replicate outside of official channels, provided irrefutable proof of her credentials. Returning to the security desk, Admiral Richardson's authoritative voice cut through the confusion that had surrounded Sarah for the past hour. "Gentlemen," he announced to the assembled security personnel, "this officer's credentials are valid and her clearances are authentic. That tattoo she bears is not something that can be faked or earned easily. It represents achievements and sacrifices that most of us can only imagine." The effect of Admiral Richardson's intervention was immediate and dramatic. The security personnel, who had been treating Sarah with suspicion and skepticism, suddenly stood at attention and offered apologies for the inconvenience. Her credentials were quickly processed, and she was escorted to the conference room with the respect befitting her actual rank and position. Sarah's briefing that day was particularly impactful. partly because word of the morning's events had spread through the Pentagon's corridors. Senior officers who attended the conference came away with a new understanding of the dedication and sacrifice required to achieve the highest levels of military service, regardless of age or appearance. The incident became a defining moment in Sarah's career, not because it challenged her abilities, but because it demonstrated the respect she had earned from the military's most senior leadership. Admiral Richardson's recognition had validated years of hard work, dangerous missions, and personal sacrifices in a way that no formal commendation ever could. In the months that followed, Sarah's reputation grew even further within the classified community. The story of how Admiral Richardson had recognized her credentials spread among those authorized to know such details, becoming a legend within the elite circles where she operated. Her tattoo, once simply a mark of achievement, had become a symbol of the respect she had earned through exceptional service. Years later, as Sarah transitioned to training the next generation of elite operators, she would often reflect on that morning at the Pentagon. It had taught her that true recognition sometimes came from unexpected sources, and that the symbols of achievement she bore were not just personal markers, but representations of the trust and respect of the entire military community. The specialized tattoo on her shoulder remained a constant reminder of the journey that had brought her from a doubtful recruit to one of the military's most respected professionals. It represented not just her individual achievements, but the breaking down of barriers and the expansion of opportunities for future generations of service members who would follow in her footsteps.